Right. All right. My name's Graham Evans. I run the Northcliffe Community Resource Centre, and today I'm here with Claudette and Darryl, who are both going to introduce themselves. Claudette?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Claudette Mountjoy, and I've lived in Northcliffe for about 50 years. Very excited about the setup at the CRC that they've got here, where you can record people telling stories or whatever. And we're here today to record Darryl Atkinson's stories. He's was born in Northcliffe Hospital. But I'm really excited about this scheme here at the CRC. It really enables country people to be creative as they want to be.
Great. You go ahead, Darryl.
Claudette, that was right on the ball, and I'm very pleased that you said what you just said. Darryl Atkinson is my name. I was born in the Northcliffe Hospital in 1932. Again, a bit more of what Claudette just said, but I've only lived here again as a second time around. There's a few people in Northcliffe who've done the same sort of thing, lived here part of their lives early on, and now are living here again, having returned to Northcliffe. Therefore, my story is I spent my early childhood up to about 3 years of age on a farm with my mother and father out on Barara Road. But the Great Depression actually destroyed all their hope of continuing on their farm as first generation farmers beyond the original Northcliffe settlers. Their parents had already been original Northcliffe settlers back in 1924. Now, about me and my very early childhood, I don't know much, but I went to Perth with my parents in their old Chev motor car, and we lived in Perth. I grew up there for a long time, trained eventually as a school teacher, but along the way through my schooling, I had the opportunity of spending holidays back in Northcliffe with the Gibbs family children, some of whom were only a few years older than myself. But what happened was, in those years that I was with the Gibbs family, they had a brand new 1938 truck. I've got through to the 1938 now, and it was doing what was called the cream run out on the Northcliffe South region to all the farmers that were there existing on their farms at that time, 1938, as a truck. But I remember going many times, putting it out of their way to put me ride in the back of the truck and watch as they drove down the gravel road, watch the blooming gravel cloud behind the vehicle. I never forgot it. And when the opportunity came, much later in life, it brought me, those memories, brought me back in retirement from a life as a school teacher and as a deputy principal and education officer in the education department. I was 66 years of age, having taught my last few years in Manjimup and back in Pemberton as well. And I retired in 1998. So I've lived in what was my grandparents' Gibbs. That's one side of my family, and as I've already said, the Atkinson side is my name, Darryl Atkinson. They also left Northcliffe in 1935. So we all still had connections, and they had friends who had also gone from their land and their farms, and they had to live and socialise in Perth, where they were all together. Now, to return to just where I was, when I came back to Northcliffe and retired to my grandparents' retirement home, it was bought from the Gibbs family. It was surplus to their needs. I bought it for a penny or two, something like $8,000 to $14,000. I've had it renovated in and out, and would you believe, a happy retirement back in Northcliffe, enjoying it enormously, a totally renovated house built, transported as a 1924 house to a house in the town site, renovated in and out, outside, absolutely lovely to live in. I'm now back in it after having spent 2 months in hospital and just a fortnight home again in Northcliffe. I wish you all a lovely time on your visit here, and especially for people who might be contemplating to return, even if they were never born here, return here to what is a magnificent place to live, and it was so terribly difficult for those early settlers, whom I understand within 5 years of 1924, 85% of them had abandoned their homes, some of whom I know already have returned to live in Northcliffe. I'm not the first of them, I'm sure, but I'm delighted to be here. Welcome again, everybody. Have a good time. Take it all in. Go and see the museum. It's absolutely an eye-opener. Don't miss it. Even talk around the town. It looks maybe a little bit short on in shops being used, but my goodness, in those early days there were little shops all around the town, both streets, and people would come in with their horses and carts and have a few bickies or scones to eat and a cup of tea in the tea house that was here right on the corner in the middle of CBD, Northcliffe, 1924 to well into the 50s, 60s and beyond. Imagine, as you walk around, as I'm sure you're going to do, just imagine how it was living here right through the century. And I'm just about out of breath. Maybe you are too. Please enjoy yourself at this anniversary of Northcliffe establishment in 1924.
Oh,
Thank you.
That's great. We'll use that when we'll take that little clip out and we'll use that. That'll be great. So you were only 3, Darryl, when you first left Northcliffe.
Yeah.
But you were 7 at the start of World War II?
7 or 8, yes.
Yeah. Do you have any memories from that?
Oh, the whole lot. I thought a bomb had fallen on the house we were living in Leederville, and it was actually only a falling star. The war had started 1939 in Europe, and I was aware of just about everything that was happening and kept my own scrapbook from the days of Tobruk and Australian involvement in the Middle East and onwards into Europe, and then eventually back home to encounter the Japanese in New Guinea. Since then, because of my direction into teaching eventually, I kept up at 13 at the end of the war with a kept documentary of what I had heard on the radio, no TV for a long, long time. My parents didn't have a TV. We did eventually have a mantle radio of our own, and that enabled me to get a background of what was happening and followed it through right to eventually, of course, in the early 50s, after graduating from teacher college and having a year or two to save enough money, I got married to raise a family. Thank you again.
So World War II, you only just barely became a teenager, and that was over. But then the Korean War, was that, were you a more relevant age for things like service call-ups, or did you, because you're a teacher, that wasn't relevant to you?
Do you seek a bit of a commentary about what you just asked me about?
Yes.
Because I can offer it, yes.
Yes, that'd be great.
Of course, when I finished schooling, I was 18 years of age, another 3 years to get through teacher college training. I eventually, as a sideline, joined the CMF. That's a Reserve Army group. I had been a cadet lieutenant in the Army Cadets while I was at school for those last couple of years. I rose to the rank of lieutenant, and once I joined CMF and joined support company of the 1628th Battalion, they sent me to Oxford course at the WA University. I was an age, of course, at that time for call-up. But it turned out I didn't win the lottery or lose the lottery. I didn't go to Korea. I didn't have any shots fired at me, but I did spend octo time, but decided it was more to my advantage to get married, and finished not long afterwards by resigning from the army. I hope it wasn't to their great disappointment. But he kept up following the Korean War episodes between the Chinese in Korea, the Koreans themselves fighting against the Chinese, backing the North Koreans, with the Americans all in together in a conflict which eventually ended up in a stalemate on the international line between North and South Korea that was drawn up at the conclusion of the fighting. It was never a win or lose deal. It was just an acceptance. We're trying to think of the word, a mutual acceptance between the countries concerned with the American agreement in the situation. I went on, still following the world events through the Vietnam War and on into Afghanistan and up to the time of recording this information. I'm at 90 years of age, but still watching my TV and listening to my radio and keeping up with affairs as it goes along. Hope you have enjoyed all of this. It brings me right up to date. You too have a good time. Everybody has their story. That was mine and is mine. And I've got to enjoy very much the opportunity offered through the backing that's available here in Northcliffe. Cheers for 100th anniversary of Northcliffe. Still going, the one town of the group settlement scheme in WA that is still going. Bye for now.
Did you want to have a sip of water and a breather?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't smoke. I haven't smoked for about 6 years, so it was no offer of a smoke. But it'd be smoke time, wouldn't it? If you were a smoker, somewhere outdoors.
It would.
Oh, that was very good.
Did?
Yeah, very good. You got good diction and it sounded good. Yeah, and you knew what you were talking about. I was
Lovely.
impressed.
Sounds great on the microphone.
Does it?
Yeah.
You're going to edit all of that now.
Absolutely. Yep. But I was going to ask you.
Go on.
I know you had a couple of Mitsubishi Magnas, or was it just one?
I've still got the two of them.
Wow.
You sold me one, didn't you?
Yes, we sold you our
You
rack.
didn't sell it to me. You gave it to me.
That's right. We had the executive edition. Polly Valentine and I, we took it around Australia. We took it onto four-wheel drive tracks. We went into a place called Limestone Gorge, and we had to literally lift it over the roadbed at times because there's giant rocks. And we got in there and we camped for a week, and the whole time his four-wheel drives were arriving and seeing a Mitsubishi Magna station wagon and just going, how did they get here?
All right, this is another story about it. I'm glad you gave it to me. If this is going to please you and your wife, is the present wife you had the same wife you had then?
So Polly and I separated since then, but yes.
All right. One of the first things I had, it was parked on my front lawn. I cleaned it thoroughly, right through from the front end to the rear. And then my Magna from time to time played up, and Len Dixon helped me to fix it with spare parts we used from your Magna. I've got a lot of respect for the vehicle. I had a 1990 Executive Magna at the time, and it was kept going with spares that we drew from the motor car that came from Graham and his family. Now, eventually I sold it for scrap, would you believe, $50. And I've still got the Executive that I had in my double carport alongside my house in Northcliffe. But I've now got a later model, a 1992, licensed, brand new tyres on it, $500 worth, and I can't drive it myself anymore. But just this last Sunday, my son had his 24th birthday, and we went driving in it. His battery was charged up, even though I was 2 months in hospital. It still took a charge and recharged his battery, and we drove around Northcliffe's local roads, reminiscing at places we saw all around on Harry Hill Drive. And came home and went marroning. I sat in the car, but he and a friend of his went marroning with nets in their home dams, and we had a feed of marron that night. Previously, I had turned 90. He and all his boys of his family were attended my 90th birthday. I set it up at the Pemberton Hotel. We had a grand time. Lots of people joined in and helped in with the happy birthday chorus that was celebrated on that occasion, and my son and his friend rejoined the situation subsequently when he had his birthday, and we had a rejoinder, as I've just said, a rejoinment, and enjoyed ourselves around Northcliffe again, looking at the abandoned farms and the magnificence of those that had survived and were beautifully cleared and green grass right now, early in November, as I'm recording this, I think, in 2022. Couple of years more to 2024, and we've got our 100th anniversary. Cheers, everyone.
Can I just ask you, Darryl? Darryl and I share a whole lot of grandchildren. A bit long to discuss all that, but apparently your father was a very good mechanic. Is that right?
Is this on record?
It is.
I can answer that one. He was an absolutely first-class motor car mechanic. Most of his life he spent at Winterbottom Motor Company and became expert on their models of motor cars that they modelled, they sold and promoted. But was he not just a mechanical mechanic, but he also learned all of the intricacies and could repair automatic transmissions and the very earliest of the electronic ignition systems that came into motor cars that make probably his form of mechanicking obsolete. There's a new world out there with the digital systems of electronic control of vehicles. And at the time of speaking, it looks as though we're all going to be headed into electronic motor cars, electric motor cars, if you like, in the not too distant future beyond 2024, if not already. He would be a mechanic who may well have grown with the industry, but of course he died at 82 years of age quite a while back, and I'm now, as I've said perhaps earlier, that you've listened to, 90 years of age. I had other uncles who were mechanics as well, especially Uncle Vic Atkinson, but he was more concerned about the mechanical side of cars, the repairing of damaged motor cars and spray painting of the outside, but a mechanic nevertheless handling the motors of his era, but not too deeply technical about such things as automatic transmissions. Instead of gears, it does its own gear change, if that needs a little bit of explanation to people who are not familiar with the innards of motor cars.
Yeah, lots of people wouldn't be familiar with manuals these days. So it's so great to meet another Mitsubishi Magna fan, Darryl.
I'm still driving one that's now 30 years old. It's as smooth as motor car. We went for a drive on Sunday, as I've said, with my son, and finished up having marron for tea. I hope you can find some marron yourself, because there are marron farms and it is available, if possibly through the hotel, for you to go and have a feed there towards the end of the day, or even to lunch there. They might even have some of the marron farm marron there to your taste. I urge you to consider it. It's a delightful morsel in the mouth. Thank you.
It is indeed. So, did you have any other favourite cars along the way beside the Magna? Were you like a Holden man or a Ford man, or did you own any other interesting vehicles?
That's a very interesting question, because you've just about covered the lot. I started out with an Austin motor car, an Austin A40, and drove it for many years. It ran up probably hundreds of thousands of kilometres. My wife even had another one that we resurrected, and with mechanic skills of my father, we got it licensed, and she had an A40 for quite a few years as well. Migrated on to Wolseley motor cars made by VMC Motor Company. I then had bought my brand new Holden HT, had a couple of Holdens along the way after that, a Ford Falcon motor car, even, would you believe, kept up with a Cortina made by the Ford Motor Company, beautiful little station wagon. From there, sold that, bought my first Magna way back around about my retirement age, or even a bit earlier. I was last year or 2 or 3 or 4, I was teaching again to finish my teaching career in Pemberton District High School. I never taught in Northcliffe because that was my holiday place, and I enjoyed a beer, and I didn't want to be known as the local drink around the place, so I didn't teach in Northcliffe, but I had moved here to live in the retirement house I told you about. But
Darryl, while you're just clearing your throat for a minute, can I just ask about the other Atkinsons, the uncle you had who was quite a well-known psychologist, and also your auntie, May Moore, who came to Northcliffe and trained as a teacher? If you need a bit of a break, because you have been going for quite a while, but it's just there things that I'm not that interested in cars.
Well, Graham asked me about
Yeah,
cars.
sorry.
I don't think he expected me to go that far. But
No, it's interesting. So the Austin, that was a British motor car, was it?
the Austins were, yeah.
And the
Famous
BMC?
Austin A40s.
Was it BMC that you said? Your next
Yeah,
one?
they made them. It was then called the Austin Motor Company. BMC was British Motor Corporation.
Ah.
They took over Austin, virtually the same firm with a different name.
That's before my motor car knowledge. And my motor car knowledge starts with, Datsun and Ford and Holden and all that.
Yeah, righto.
Mm.
The Wolseley that I had was the upmarket motor car. I could never have afforded one new. I bought it second hand. It was one of the earliest that I know of that had a first class automatic transmission.
I don't
I
think
can't
I've ever
think of
bought
the
a new
number
car.
of it,
Did you
name.
were any of your cars new?
Yes, the Holden HT, the first one when I moved away from the A40.
That would have been exciting, getting a new car.
Too right. It proved too expensive for me to maintain. I was trying to do another job other than teaching, and I found I had to sell it to recover part of what I'd invested in it already, and I bought another motor car. I think it was a Falcon that I bought, and I had two Falcons. Finishing with an HT4 on the floor, real racing motor car that was. They're famous now. They tell me they can be worth $60,000 on the market if you can find one. How's that? I had one and I kept it right through till when it broke a piston and I had to wreck it. I felt very sad about that. But now, if it's appropriate, I'd like to go back to Claudette's question and comment on that.
Yeah, you still remember it? So
Yeah.
what was,
Darryl had an uncle called Eric. It was Eric, wasn't it?
Yes.
And he was Mr. Routley, who also lives in Northcliffe and has been interested in psychology a lot. We often talk about psychology and all the old psychologists that were working in Perth at that time. And he told me about how impressed he was with Eric Atkinson. And Mrs. Moore, Darryl's auntie,
Yeah.
she inspired me as a woman because she used to teach school and go home and milk the cows, and she was just such a strong woman and never ever said a bad word against anybody. She was wonderful. So I'd just like to hear about those two people.
I can build on that, and what I have to say is very moving, I'm sure, certainly to me. Have I the pleasure of continuing in my commentary?
please do so.
Auntie May Moore and her husband and family, but especially May, she came here to Australia with her parents, eventually, of course, my grandparents. She was already of an age where she could undertake whatever career she liked. She was the eldest of what were 8 children, most of whom born in England, but 2 born here in WA on the group settlement scheme at the Northcliffe Hospital. That was Eric and his younger sister Joan. May eventually became a school teacher, and it was all done on a remote control system of its time. She never went and attended, except on rare occasions she went and attended her training in Teachers College in Claremont, as it was at that time. She finished her leaving certificate also on that system. She never attended the actual school at Bunbury where she would have been if she could have gone there. There wasn't the money and there weren't the vehicles at the time, and even the railway line for a long time wasn't available here in Northcliffe until way after 1924. I came on the train myself during those visits that I had to the Gibbs family just prior to. I used to come on the train with my auntie Joan. Strangely enough, the family was intelligent and anxious to find a way out of the group settlement scheme. They left in 1935, as I've recounted earlier, I'm sure. They all got a decent education. Eric was so clever, he was actually a winner of a scholarship to Guildford Grammar School and passed very successfully, was on his way to become a teacher, and he was called up to fight in New Guinea early in the Second World War in that encounter we had with the Japanese. He survived that but had caught some serious illnesses. Nevertheless, he rattled on, completed a university degree, very interested in education. He followed up his education theme, trained and became a teacher, but subsequently, because of his condition that he was suffering, it was a sort of paralysis developing condition. He eventually matriculated in the university, was accepted into the education department, into their psychology branch, where he met the friend that, and became the friend of the person that Claudette has mentioned a little bit earlier, whose name escapes me at the moment.
Robin Routley it was.
They worked together as psychologists, and eventually Robert went on, as I'm told, and lived his life, but Eric became the director of the Psychology and Social Work Department of Curtin University, originally known as WAIT, West Australian Institute of Technology. A marvellous endeavour. He always maintained his connection with Northcliffe. May, of course, not only got herself involved, as Claudette has recounted to us, but she also was a foundation member of the Museum Management Committee and helped in its very early re-management establishment with Marie Daubney, a maiden name, who was a former school teacher, again alongside Auntie May, here in the Northcliffe schools, where they both taught in the early years during the war and afterwards. I think that might bring that part of my story together. All other members of the Atkinson family, of whom eventually there were 8, was May, and my father, Norman, his brother, closest brother, Victor. And then after that was a girl whose name escapes me as I'm talking, another boy, Eric, and the 2 younger daughters, of whom Joan was the youngest. I think if you try to add that up, you finish with 8, and if I've got a moment or two after this commentary and anybody wants extra, somehow I can tell you what I've missed or can't remember at 90 years of age. Everybody have a heck of a good time today. Maybe you too will be 90 sometime, or you're that close now. And if you're a young, start around the place, kick your heels up, mate. Go into our oval and have a good time. There's lots of games going on there, I'm sure. And anyway, there's a whole playground here in town. If you go and find that, there's games galore there that you can play. I believe they've even got Skid Row, where you can have a hell of a good time on your skateboards and that sort of thing. Hey, have a look around, folks, young and old. Have a glorious time. The 24th anniversary of Northcliffe's establishment, 2024. Thank you.
Bravo.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Have I covered everything?
Oh, yeah.